All right, guys. Let's see. We've been working on circles, and we were reviewing completing a square last week, and now we put it all together. Okay, so they give us an equation like this, and it says it wants to put it in standard form, and then afterwards identify the center and the radius. So this is where the whole process of completing the square comes in. Okay, so you see right here, I have a quadratic term in x and a linear term in x. That means I'm going to have to complete the square in x. Okay, notice that I also have a quadratic term in y and a linear term in y. So that means I'm going to have to complete the square in y as well. So any constant on the left-hand side, I'm going to move that guy over, okay, and get rid of him. Okay, so I group together the x squared with the negative 6x. And I know I'm going to need some constant to complete the square there. Okay, then I group together the y squared with the 8y. And again, I know I'm going to need a constant there, okay, to complete the square. And then I have this negative 3 on the other side, and I bring this negative 5 over so it becomes positive. Okay, and whatever I add here, I have to add over here. And whatever I add here, I have to add over here. Okay. So let's see. How do we complete the square? Well, we take the coefficient of the linear term, we divide by 2, and we square that. So if I add it here, I have to add it over here. Okay, same thing here. Take the coefficient of the linear term, divide by 2, and then square that. So if I add it here, I have to add it over here. Okay, so let's see. This gives me x squared minus 6x plus 9. Right, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Okay, y squared plus 8y plus 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Okay, and that would give me negative 3 plus 5. Let's see, this guy was plus 9. And this guy was plus 16. Okay. So let's see, I factor this guy. Okay, so all perfect square trinomials factor into the square of a binomial. I bring the sign of the middle term down. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 9 is 3. Okay, now I've got another perfect square trinomial. I have to factor that guy into a square of a binomial. Bring the sign of the linear term down. The square root of y squared is y. The square root of 16 is 4. And then let's see, on the other side, let's see, this would give me 25, 30, 27. Okay, so now it's in standard form, and so now I can identify the center and the radius. Okay, so remember, okay, this takes us back to x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Takes us back to this guy. Okay, so when I take a look here, that'd be x minus h, so h is 3. All right, so my center, which is my hk, okay, x minus h, okay, so h is 3. Y minus k, so that'd be y minus a negative 4, so k is negative 4. Okay, and then my radius, okay, would be the square root, okay, of this guy. This guy right here, 27, is r squared, so the square root of that, okay, would be my radius, okay? All right, so my radius is the square root of 27, and that is not in simplest radical form. We have a factor of 9 in there. That's 9 times 3, so I would get 3 radical 3 for my radius. Okay, so I have my center here, and I have my radius here, and we're good to go. Okay, let's try another one of those. All right, let's see. I've got a quadratic term in x and a linear term in x, so I have to complete the square in x. I also have a quadratic term in y and a linear term in y, so I got to complete the square in y. Notice I don't have any constants over here on the left-hand side to move over to the right, so I can just go about my business. Okay, so I have this x squared plus 12x, and obviously I'm going to need a constant there. Okay, I have that 0 over here, so whatever constant I add here, I have to add over here. Okay, I have my y squared minus 10y, and I'm going to need a constant there. So whatever constant I add here, I have to add over here. Okay, so let's see. Take 12, divide by 2, and then square that. Take 10, divide by 2, and square that. So I have to add this guy over here, 12 divided by 2 squared, and I have to add this guy over here, 10 divided by 2 squared. Okay, so let's see, I get x squared plus 12x plus 12 divided by 2 is 6, 6 squared is 36. Okay, y squared minus 10y plus, let's see, 10 divided by 2 is 5, 5 squared is 25. On the other side, the 0, I just tossed that out. Okay, this guy gave me 36, and this guy gave me 25. Okay, so let's see. That's a perfect square trinomial. It factors into the square of a binomial. Bring the sign of the middle term down. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 36 is 6. We're done there. Okay, here we go. Another perfect square trinomial. Factors into the square of a binomial. Bring the sign of the middle term down. The square root of y squared is y. The square root of 25 is 5. And on the other side, I add the 36 and the 25, and I get 61. Okay, so again, going back to my x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. I got to go back to that guy to find my center and my radius. Okay, so my center, okay, my radius. Okay, so remember my center is my hk. Okay, so we get x minus h, so that'd be x minus a negative 6. So h is negative 6. Okay, y minus k, so that y minus k, so k is 5. Okay, and my radius would be the square root of this guy. Okay, so the radius is the square root of 61, and 61 is a prime number, so there's nothing else I can do with that guy. Okay, so we're done with that one. Okay, try another one. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I've got a quadratic in x and a linear in x, so I gotta complete the square in x. I've got a quadratic in y and a linear in y, so I gotta complete the square in y. This constant, I wanna get it out of the way, so I move it over to the other side. Okay, so let's see, we got x squared minus 5x plus some unknown plus y squared minus 7y plus some unknown. Okay, the positive 2 comes over, becomes negative 2, and then whatever I add here and add here, I got to add both of those guys over here. So plus some unknown plus some unknown. Okay, so let's see, we take half of 5 and we square it. Here we take half of 7 and we square it. So if I add this guy on the left, I got to add it on the right. And if I add this guy on the left, I've got to add it on the right. Okay. So let's see, this gives me x squared minus 5x plus, that would be, when I square 5 halves, I get 25 fourths plus y squared minus 7y plus, when I square 7 halves, I get 49 fourths. Okay, equals negative 2 plus, let's see, that guy, that gave me 25 fourths. And this guy right here gave me 49 fourths. Okay, so let's see, this is a perfect square trinomial. We factor that into the square of a binomial, bring the sign of the middle term down. Okay, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 25/4 would be 5/2. Okay, let's see. Again, another perfect square trinomial. Bring the sign of the middle term down. The square root of y squared is y. The square root of 49/4 is 7/2. And let's see, I've got to add these guys over here. Okay, so let's see, if I add these guys, all because they have the same denominator. Okay, all I have to do is add the 25 and the 49, and that gives me 74. So that would be 74/4. Okay, and let's see, this -2 has to be 4, so that would be a -8/4. Okay. So we get x minus 5/2 squared plus y minus 7/2 squared equals, let's see that guy. Okay, when I add those, I'm going to get 66/4, okay, which I can reduce, okay, and that guy will go down to 33/2. Okay, so it looks like I have 33/2. Now, I'm going to check this, okay, with a calculator just to make sure. I'm pretty sure I'm in good shape, but I want to make sure I don't have any mistakes here. So -2 plus 25/4 plus 49/4, and I get, right, 33/2. Okay, so we're in good shape here. Okay, so we have our center. Okay, and we have our radius. And once again, going back to your x minus h squared, y minus k squared equals r squared. So our hk, okay, be x minus h, so h is 5/2. Okay, be y minus k, so k is 7/2. There's our center. And then our radius would be the square root of this guy. Okay, so radius is the square root of 33/2. All right, now 33/2 is not a perfect square. We've got to rationalize here. So remember, this guy would be like radical 33 over radical 2. So to rationalize, I got to multiply above and below by radical 2. And let's see, that gives me radical 66 over 2. Okay, and then I'm taking a look at this guy, that radical 66. Okay, I've got to worry about, is that guy in simplest radical form? Well, let's see, 66 is 6 times 11, which would give us 2 times 3 times 11, and there's no way to form a perfect square. So radical 66 is in simplest radical form. Okay, let's try one more of these guys, and we'll call it a day. All right, let's see. X squared with the 9x, okay. So I got to complete the square in x. Now notice y squared does not have a linear term, which means that y squared is already a perfect square. So I don't have to complete the square in y here. Okay, so all I got to do is take this -7 and move it over. Okay, so I group together the x squared plus 9x plus, I know I'm going to have something there, plus this y squared, and notice there's no linear term again in y. Okay, so I have a -3 on the right-hand side. I bring this -7 over so it becomes positive, and then I'm only adding one unknown here, so I just have to add one unknown over here. Okay, so let's see, we take 9, we take half of it, and we square that. Okay, so if I add it to the left-hand side, I have to add it to the right-hand side. Okay, so let's see, this gives us x squared plus 9x plus, when I square 9 halves, I get 81/4 plus, well, y squared's already a perfect square, but so I could write that as y minus 0 squared. Okay, let's see, -3 plus 7 is 4. And then when I square the 9 halves again, I get 81/4. Okay. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Okay, this is a perfect square trinomial. So it factors into the square of a binomial, bring the sign of the middle term down. Okay, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 81/4 is 9/2. This guy is already a perfect square. I didn't have to complete the square. And let's see, this guy over here, let's see. Okay, so let's see, that would be 4/1, so I'd have to multiply above and below by 4 to get the same denominator. So it'd be 16/4 plus 81/4, which would give us 97/4. And 97/4 is a reduced fraction. Okay, so let's see, we can get our center and we can get our radius. Okay, so let's see, our center, our HK. Okay, so that'd be x minus h, so that'd have to be x minus a negative 9/2. So h is negative 9/2. Okay, we'd have y minus k, so k is 0. And then our radius would be the square root of this guy. Square root of 97/4. All right, so let's see, that would be like the square root of 97 over the square root of 4. Okay, so I know the square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so we don't have to rationalize it. See, 97. I'm pretty sure that's a prime number. Square root of 97. Okay, so we're in good shape there. So we have our center, and we have our radius. And notice this guy's a little bit different. The reason it's a little bit different is, notice with y, all we have is a quadratic term. We have no linear term. So if you have no linear term, that means we don't have to complete the square because it's already a perfect square. As opposed to over here, I've got a quadratic term and a linear term in x. That means I have to complete the square because x squared plus 9x is not a perfect square. Okay? All right, so that'll wrap it up for today, and we'll do a couple more of these guys tomorrow. Okay? You guys stay safe out there, and I miss you a whole bunch.